Well, good morning, afternoon, evening, night, whatever applies to you. Welcome to either Humanities 101M or Humanities 102M, or maybe for some of you, both. I decided to go ahead and make one welcome video for both courses because the structure, the procedures, the rules of both courses are identical. So there was really no reason to do two separate videos. So the first thing that I'll say to you is, well, welcome to the class, and I'm glad you're taking it, and I want you to succeed, and I'm here for you. So maybe the first thing I should say is that even though this is an asynchronous course, in other words, we're never going to be, sort of all getting together virtually at the same time. I am very much available, and just reaching out by email is the best way to get a hold of me. So I just wanted to put that on the table right away. So especially if you're struggling, confused, whatever, just immediately reach out, and I will get back with you very very quickly. So the next thing that I want you all to do, if you haven't done this already, is download the syllabus for the course. Okay, print out a copy or open the PDF, because I'm going to be kind of following along the syllabus, um, and hitting highlights, not hitting everything. And so you're going to want to be able to consult that as we go along. So if you need to pause and do all that, then now is the time to do that. Okay, so for both syllabi, 101 and 102, even though I want you to read what is before this, I want you to scroll down to the section that says texts and reading, or text and readings. So for the 102 syllabus, that's on page 2. I believe for the 101 syllabus, that's on page 3. Now, I really want to stress this from the beginning. Um, this is important for a number of respects, um, not least for the sake of integrity. But I am going to absolutely insist that you use the editions of the texts that are on the syllabus. So, for instance, this is one example. In 102, we read Dante's Inferno. Now, there's a lot of different editions and translations of Dante's Inferno available. I want you to use the Ciardi translation. That's not just a recommendation, that is mandatory. Likewise, 101, we read the Odyssey and we use the Lombardo translation. That is required. Um, if when you turn in written work for me in discussion forums, and I'll come to that in a moment, um, I'm going to require you to cite the specific version of the text that is assigned on the syllabus. Okay, so now the good news is most of these books should be available quite cheaply, especially if you're willing to get a used copy. So we're not talking about a major um, layout of expenses, but that's really, it's a pass fail issue. If you're not using the edition of the text that's assigned, I cannot give you a passing grade on the assignment. So I'm sorry to be so strict with this, uh, but but it's the policy that I've settled on. So I want you to be aware of that from the jump. Um, there'll also be some readings on Canvas, but those are already there. That's not really an issue. Um, and if you're taking 102, there is also a film that you'll need to watch, and it might be on a streaming service, but you might also have to pay $4 to rent it. Okay. Um, what else? Yeah, let's skip on down again, we don't have to. I will say there's a little section on integrity, which is basically just about cheating. And if I suspect you of violating this, I'll reach out to you first. I'll see if we can sort of figure out what's going on. Um, but I would really just rather avoid those kinds of conversations altogether. If we can't come to a good resolution on that, I have to reach out to the dean and so on and so forth. So I know you want to avoid that too. So it's very easy, to deal with if you just, do your own work. Then we can avoid all of that. Oh, I do want to mention last thing. There's a section called assistance. For 102, the 102 syllabus, that's on page 3. That may also be the case um, for the 101. But I do want to say that the Writing Center is open and available and ready to help you this summer. So they've been very proactive about this, and you've got information there in the syllabus on how to contact the Writing Center, different ways of soliciting their help. It's not required, but it is a free service. And given the fact, again, I'll say more about this in a moment, but given the fact that you will be doing these regular discussion posts, and you will be graded on the quality of those posts, some of you very well may want to make use of the Writing Center's services. Okay, so now we come to kind of the heart of the course. How is this course going to work on a kind of day-to-day, week-to-week basis? Well, this is, kind of a module-based course. Of course, it's all online. Everything that you do will be submitted online. And the core unit of this course is the weekly module. So these courses have 8 weeks, starting on June the 1st. And you complete 1 week at a time, and then you move on to the next. It's not a cumulative, these are not cumulative courses, so that, like on week 4, you're going to be asked to talk about week 1 material. It's not how it works. Right? You complete each week, and then you're done. Now, I have set it up so that if you wish, and if you're able, you can get up to 1 week ahead. So when the course begins, week 1 and week 2 will both be open, the others will be locked. And I do that just because I think it would be a bad idea to try to get more than 1 week ahead. I think most of you will not even get to that point. So that's sort of how I have it set up. So you can get a little bit ahead if you want to, but you can't sort of push yourself unreasonably. Okay, so what are you when a new week begins? What's the first thing to do? Well, the first thing to do is to watch my instructor videos. Okay, and they kind of orient you to some of the material that you will be reading for the week. Each instructor video has a short quiz that goes with it. So here's what I would suggest. It's a new week. First thing you do is you watch those videos, but after you watch each one, assuming that you're paying good attention, maybe even taking some notes, immediately take the quiz that goes with it. Just knock that out while the material is fresh on your mind, okay? And maybe you have time to do one of those instructor videos and the quiz. Maybe you have time to do all of them in one sitting. That of course, is totally up to you. I mean, this class is very flexible in that regard. Now, these quizzes on the instructor's videos, those are always due by the end of the day on Wednesday, no exception, right? So that's me kind of pushing you to go ahead and do these videos early in the week so you can move on and do your other assignments. What are those other assignments? Well, as I've already said, you're going to have assigned readings. Sometimes they're going to be fairly lengthy, sometimes maybe a little bit less so. You'll also have lectures. So these are video recordings of actual humanities lectures that were given by colleagues of mine in the humanities department. So you're supposed to watch those as well. Now, again, when you do that doesn't really matter so much. Then you have and this is kind of the culmination of the week, you have a weekly quiz that is due by midnight on Sunday. And that is going to cover all of the assigned readings, and it's going to cover all of the assigned humanities lectures, okay? Not really my instructor videos, because you've already been quizzed on those, okay? But those lectures that are delivered by my colleagues, those will be covered as well. Now, to help you prepare for the weekly quiz, both of these courses have study guides, and you can find those, in the very first module of the course materials. And the study guides are, that they're just on the assigned reading. So every assigned reading has a set of study guide questions that go with it. So here's what I would recommend. Before I do the reading, I would read those study guide questions. That will help you focus your reading. You know what you're looking for. You do the reading, and then ideally, before you take the weekly quiz, you go to the study guide and you quiz yourself. And that way you discover kind of what your weak points are, like, oh, I don't remember what the answer to this question is. So then you go back to the reading and you find the answer, and then you're better prepared for the exam. Now, I don't have a mechanism to try to force you to use the study guide, but I think it really, for almost all of you, it would be very wise to make use of it. It's one of the best tools at your disposal to prepare for these weekly quizzes. And keep in mind, the quizzes are 40% of your final grade. So you want to take those very seriously. And I should also mention all quizzes are timed, and they're timed fairly strictly. But of course, when you take the quiz, it'll let you know that right away. Okay. Do I need to add anything about any of that? I don't think so. I mean, again, you can read this in the syllabus. I don't bother, because there's no way for me to monitor this. I don't bother, telling you like, well, don't look at your books or don't look at your notes when you're taking these quizzes, because they're timed in the way that they are. You're just not really going to have much time at all to do that. I would ask certainly that you would not take an exam in concert with someone else. Probably wouldn't be that helpful anyway, because the order of the questions are always randomly scrambled. But the quizzes are something you need to do all on your own. Okay, so again, quizzes, 60% of your final grade for the course. The other 40% all comes from discussion forums. So discussion forums are obviously quite important. And if you look at the syllabus, find the section on discussion forums. For 102, it's page 5. And you're going to see that I give you numerous concrete criteria for what I am looking for in these discussion posts of yours. So the first thing to say is these are not pass-fail kind of deals, okay? If I think your post is of C quality, it gets a C. If I think it's of A quality, it gets an A. If I don't think it's up to snuff at all, it gets an F. But I want you to know right from the beginning what I'm looking for so you can try to hit those marks, okay? Um, the first thing to say is this is just basic workflow, basic format. Ordinarily, I will pose two questions. Question number one, question number two. And you don't choose which one you want to respond to. You respond to both in separate discussion posts. Okay? And each response should be a full, hearty, robust paragraph. Okay? And now, again, I'm not going to, well, actually, I will. I'm going to go through the 8 criteria that I'm looking for in these posts. Again, you need to number one is you need to meet the minimum requirement for number of posts. So the 2 initial posts, your own direct responses to my prompts, okay? And those are always due by the end of the day on Saturday. And then what I want you to do on Sunday or earlier, if it's possible, is I want you to directly respond to one of your classmates' posts. Okay? So under normal circumstances, and it may always be normal circumstances, that would be 3 posts total, right? Your own direct post to my 2 prompts, and then a response to one of your classmates' post, okay? So obviously, if you don't do all 3, that's a problem and you'll be penalized for that. Criterion number 2, quality of writing. And here again, this is where the Writing Center can help you out, especially if you're not very confident about your writing. These need to be well-written, polished, proofread posts, okay? You can think about them, I mean, they're not really essays, but think about them, you know, when you hand in an essay for a class, you want that to be pretty polished and well-written. So you want the same thing here. Number 3, pertinence. So I want you, when I give you the prompts, I want you to be responding not to the prompt that you wish I had given you, but the prompt that I actually gave you. So a direct response. And then likewise, when you respond to a classmate, really, show that you've read your classmates' reflections, you've thought about them, and respond to them rather than just, posting kind of random musings. Number 4, courtesy, and this really hasn't been a problem. I've taught this class online for a long time. I really haven't had a problem with rudeness. So let's not start this summer. And by the way, I should say, I encourage disagreement. It gets boring when everyone just agrees with each other. Like, yeah, good point. I mean, that's fine. But I really appreciate discussion, disagreement, and debate as long as it's done in a civil manner. Number 5, and this is a big one, citation of evidence in support of your points. Okay. Now, I'm going to go back to what I was saying before about using the assigned editions of the text. Okay? In every single discussion post, and this includes your response to a classmate, each one should include at least one citation of an assigned text. Okay? And it needs to be, again, the text that was assigned for the course. So here's a 101 example. If you're making a post about the Odyssey, okay, I want there to be at least one place, and occasionally I may ask you for more, but I want there to be at least one place where you cite the text, which means, in parentheses at the end of the sentence, you give a page number from where you're getting that point. So this is something that I'm really going to be emphasizing and stressing in a very emphatic way. Um, Number six, length of response. You know, a full, well-developed paragraph. That's a little bit subjective. That's a little bit squishy. I'll let you know if you're erring on one side or the other. In other words, I'll let you know if your posts are too long or too short. Um, we're looking for that sort of Goldilocks in the middle. Seven, punctuality. Okay, so this is really big. It's very important that you upload your two main posts by the end of the day on Saturday. Why? Because you're all required to respond to a classmate, and you need some time to do that. So I have a stiff penalty if you don't have those first two posts submitted by midnight on Saturday. That's an automatic 15-point penalty. So you really, really want to avoid that. And I made the first time or two. And by the way, you may have already noticed there are no discussion posts due on week one. I'm giving you a chance to kind of get acclimated to the course. Okay, so your first discussion post will be due at the end of week two. And I may, reach out and give you a little reminder about some of the deadlines. But really, you need to be keeping track of this yourself. Um, and then the last criterion, the eighth and final criterion, is originality. So what I mean by that is I want your post to reflect your own thoughts, your own responses, your own reactions. Okay. Um, and I'm going to say more about that in just a moment. And then number two, you before you submit your discussion post, I want you to look at what has already been submitted by your classmates. So let's say it's noon on Saturday, and you're getting ready to submit your post, or you're sitting down to do that assignment. Begin by reading, seeing if your classmates have already posted something. Here's why I want you to do this, because I don't want you to repeat, even inadvertently, what someone has already said. I want you to make a contribution, an enrichment of the discussion. So you need to read what people have said so you don't end up just repeating it. If you do that, that's a problem, and there'll be, you will definitely lose significant points for that. So, I mean, just think about, what we're trying to do as best we can is kind of replicate the classroom experience, right? When we're having a discussion in class. And it would be very odd if someone raised their hand and they made a point, and then someone else raises their hand, the teacher calls on them, and then that student makes exactly the same point. I mean, you may have actually seen something like this happen, right? And everyone kind of looks around like, that someone just said that, okay? So we want to avoid that kind of thing in this class as well. All right. Now, going back to that first thing I said about originality, I really, and this should be good news for you, I really don't want you doing any research for this class, okay? So, um, when I give you a discussion prompt, all I want are your own thoughts based on your reading of the assigned text or maybe an assigned artwork. I don't want to know sort of what the internet has to say. Okay? So, what I really would strongly prefer you to do is just not consult any other sources at all, books, articles, websites, any of that. Now, if you do that and you want to use a point that you found in your discussion post, then you've got to cite where you got that point from. Otherwise, it's plagiarism, right? Because you're passing off someone else's idea as your own. But if you do that and then you don't cite your text, yeah, that's plagiarism. Then we got a really big problem. So all of this can just sort of be avoided if you don't look for outside resources. Now, if you're really struggling with the text and you're just sort of like not sure how to begin to respond to the discussion post, that's where I can help you, right? So reach out to me, and we can either email or we can talk on the phone or whatever. So if you're really struggling, that's what I want you to do rather than just flail around online. Okay. Um, when it comes to AI, I should go ahead and mention that this is, I mean, it's there in the syllabus. Um, but I don't want you using it for this course at all in any way. In any way. There's just not only is there no need for it, but it can only inhibit what this class is trying to help you to do, which is to hone your reading, writing, and thinking skills. Because if a machine is doing that for you, that means you're not doing it, and therefore you're not maturing or developing as a reader, writer, or thinker. I'm not here to say that AI is bad in every way and that there's no legitimate use for it. I'm just saying for these classes, it just does not serve a purpose. And again, if I suspect that you're using it in your discussion posts, um, I will be initiating a discussion about that with you, and we'll just see where that goes. Okay. Yeah. So, very last part of the syllabus, before you get to the weekly schedule, um, late work. This is just, I think this comes with the territory with an online class like this. I just have to have a strict policy that I cannot accept late work, because if I'm kind of loosey goosey about that, um, not all of you, maybe not many of you, but some of you will take advantage of that. Now, obviously, if a crisis occurs, right? Serious illness, medical emergency, death in the family. Um, Obviously, I am going to extend deadlines. I'm going to work with you and all of that. Unfortunately, though, that will require some documentation, because again, there are people out there um, who would fake a death in the family, which is just horrible to think about, right? But there are people out there who would do that. Certainly, people who would, fake a medical emergency. I don't need to know details or anything personal or intimate, but I will require documentation. But apart from that, I will work with you absolutely if a true crisis happens, which God forbid. I obviously am hoping that will not happen. So along with that policy about late work, um, I cannot accept a kind of technological excuse for late work. This happened a couple of years ago. I had a student, and they were on vacation, and the student was telling me about how the Wi-Fi kept on failing at their vacation house and all that sort of thing. Now, this sounds kind of cold-hearted, and I don't mean it to be at all. But basically, what I had to say to this student is, this is not my problem. Okay, you're taking a class that's 100% online. So you've got to take the necessary precautions to make sure that you can take this course online. And you need to have a plan B and maybe even a plan C. Um, So, again, I mean, this is one of the advantages of an asynchronous course, right? You can go on vacation, and that's great. Just have backup plans worked out. Make sure the technology is solid. Make sure you've got the internet access that you need and all of that. Now, along those lines, something else that I think is really important is not waiting to the last minute to turn things in. Because if that happens, then and then you have a technological issue, you may not have time to kind of revert to a plan B, right? Um, again, I'm sorry, but if you email me on Monday and you say, "Hey, I was just about to submit my last discussion post, and it was 11:45 p.m. and my Wi-Fi died," um, I just, I'm sorry, but I cannot accept that. It's kind of the nature of the beast. Um, okay, so now I will find out who watched this video to the very end. I have an assignment for you, but it's a very easy one. I just would like for you to email me and tell me that you watched the video. Introduce yourself. I would love to know a little bit about you. I mean, the thing about these online classes, of course, is they tend to be somewhat impersonal, but we are all human beings here. So if you would just tell me a little bit about yourself, and you can define that however you would like. Um, and especially if you have like a family and you have, you know, uh, certain responsibilities and duties, uh, childcare, that kind of thing. Again, I think former students of mine will tell you that I am especially sensitive to those of you who are taking care of children, particularly if you're working on top of that. And I know, again, things do come up that are beyond your control, and I will work with you. So it just kind of helps if I know about some of those situations in advance. Um, and yeah, tell me you watch the video. Tell me that you accept my expectations for the class. Tell me a little bit about yourself, and then if you have any concerns, any questions, big or small, please go ahead and send those to me at once, so I can give you some directions, so I can set your mind at ease and all of that. So anyway, look forward to hearing back from you all, and yeah, take care.